Welcome. I so appreciate everybody's time. I think it's 6. There we go. That's the 6 o'clock according to Apple. So welcome. I so appreciate everybody's time. It shows just the incredible amount of commitment that this city and this community has to itself, that on such short notice we can fill up this room. And that's it's part of what makes this community so strong. It's part of why I know that we can be better and are going to be better. And I know that tomorrow is going to be better than today. So with that, we will. That will be our call to order. Let's begin with an invocation. Father Wiley, I saw you somewhere. If you'd come up, and then after that, please join me in a pledge of allegiance, and then we'll move forward with our agenda.
Let's pray. Merciful God, we cry out to you. Heal our souls from the scourge of violence that has infected our city. Endow each of us the courage to step out of the places of comfort we inhabit and step into the broken places, the places that it seems the darkness is winning, and to spread your light. Because we all know the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. Father, enlighten our leaders, Charles, Hiawatha, Chris, Jamie, Brandy, Beverly, Roderick, and all those who work with and have business before this council. Grant them your wisdom and grace to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly before you. Father, guide and protect our first responders, our police officers, firefighters, and emergency medical technicians as they step into the fray to protect life and to serve our community. Father, give comfort and peace to those families who have lost loved ones to acts of violence. And Father, finally, we ask that you pour out your Holy Spirit on the city of Goldsboro. Take away the pride, the fear, the vanity, the anger, the mistrust, and the apathy that hardens our hearts and keeps us from full relationship with each other and with you. Help us to see your image in each other. Bring us to that place where this city can reflect your love to everyone. All this we ask in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Getz, if you would, please conduct a roll call. Present.
Present.
Here. Here.
Present. Present.
Present. Thank you, Ms. Getz. So as everyone knows, we're here tonight because our community has seen another uptick in violent crime. What we have done very quickly is rallied as a council and decided we wanted to have a special called meeting, that we wanted to be able to engage law enforcement and have a discussion around our statistics, where we are so far year to date, how that compares to last year, and what's happened over the last 7 days. What we're going to do after that is have a conversation around operations from the law enforcement perspective of how we're going to get this thing back under control as we go through summer. And then we're going to have a conversation around civic leader engagement and what we can do from our seats. We're elected leaders in this community, and we want to serve. We want to help bring the community together. We want to heal this. We want to prevent this next year. Many of y'all know last year about this same time we were here doing this same thing. What you also probably remember is the year before that we were too. Every May and June, as school gets out, when the temperatures heat up, we have this little spike. What I want to make sure is that we do everything that we can to put something in place that stands a chance of us not having to do this next year. So tonight, you have an agenda in front of you. We're going to follow this agenda. We're going to get to council questions. If council has any questions of law enforcement or of its manager, we'll hear those questions and then closing comments. And then we're going to adjourn. We're going to get back to our individual corners of Goldsboro. We're going to go back to our communities. We as council members, we're going to get back to our districts, or myself, we're going to get back to the different pockets of the community that we engage with so regularly, and we're going to have some more conversation. To that point, our Commission on Community Relations and Development, those of you who are on the commission, would you please raise your hand? I know that each of you, thank you so much for being here, and each of you already had a meeting planned for tonight, which I am incredibly grateful for your service on that commission. And without even asking, they decided, you know what, we're going to change our meeting date so we can come here. But they know that this has been a major initiative that they're undertaking and trying to make part of their plans, their strategies for how they are going to help advise council to make this a safer and more enjoyable place to live. I also want to recognize a couple of other folks that have joined us today. Commissioner Aycock, thank you so much for joining us today. See Judge Erica James sitting over there as well. And of course, our Sheriff Pierce, thank you so much for being here this evening. We look forward to your words. We look forward to your guidance and your wisdom as we as a council are trying to work with our commissioners and trying to work with police and the entire law enforcement community, including agencies like the SBI and others that you'll hear about later, I'm sure, to try and make sure that we have a plan in place. Do I have, actually, I still appreciate that. Do we have any other elected officials? I believe we have a representative from Mount Olive here as well. Thank you so much for being here. And from Princeton, also for being here. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have I missed anybody else? And thank you again, Councilwoman Jones. I so appreciate that.
Also, the clerk of court is here, Miss Julie Whitfield.
Ms. Whitfield, I didn't even see you come in. Thank you so much. My point in calling this attention is that this problem is not limited to these minds right up here. This is truly trying to be a collaborative, forward-facing effort. So with that, I do have one final comment, and this is one of the harder ones. So earlier today, I had a conversation with Ms. Langston. Those of you who know who that is, great. If not, I'm not going to go into details of why. What I am going to say is that she's lost a grandson. And what I'm going to say is last year this time I had a conversation with another mother who'd lost a daughter. It's not the thing that this community wants to keep doing. As I was having a conversation with her, I could hear that definitive beep of a hospital heart monitor in the background. And I didn't ask why, wasn't my business, but she volunteered it and said, when my mother found out, she had to come to the hospital. These are things that impact generations of family. Violence begets violence. And I so appreciate everyone for being here, for trying to help us navigate this thing. We're going to move forward with our agenda. Chief West, I'll bring you up. And then after that, I look forward to discussing this over the coming days, weeks, and months with everyone as we maintain some momentum so that next year this time we're not having to do this. Chief West, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon, Chief.
Good afternoon, sir.
Afternoon.
I want to start by saying that my thoughts and prayers are with the families and the friends of the victims over the last few days, the tragedies that have occurred in our community.
You can speak up, I can't hear you.
We'll start. I've got a slide presentation that kind of goes through our stats. Can you hear me now? Are we doing right?
Chief, feel free to continue it. That'll give IT the opportunity to move a slider to be able to get up. And Ms. Getz is coming around your right-hand side with another microphone just in case.
What I want to start with is, actually, I went back and I pulled the crime numbers for the last 9 years. to show kind of how we're trending and where we're at now. Part 1 crimes, and Part 1 crimes are made up of 8 other crimes. Violent crimes are homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, and then property crimes are B&Es, larceny, vehicle theft, and arson. We're here tonight, we're going to talk around the violent crimes. For 7 consecutive years, from 2015 to 2021, we were able and we were fortunate, we dropped crime consecutively for those 7 years. In 2022, we saw a 13% increase, and in 2021, we saw another 21% increase. I'm sorry, in 2023. So from 2022 and 2023, we've increased 34% in our Part 1 crimes. And obviously, that's not where we need to be. But I will say, out of those Part 1 crimes, the violent crimes have kind of steadied over the last 4 years. Part 1 crimes make up roughly about 87% of our overall crime, and then violent crime makes up about 13 to 14%, and that's been pretty consistent for the last 4 years. Ran the numbers before I came up here for year to date, where we're trending so far in 2024. And for 2024, we're trending for about a 14% increase in overall Part 1 crimes. Our violent crimes are trending down just a little. We're trending now to come in at about 11% violent crime. That's still not acceptable. The next thing that I look at, or that we need to be aware of, is where is this violence happening? So what we do is we take all the reports that we compiled over the years, we go into our RMS system, and obviously we plot where these violent crimes are happening. And you can see from this map here, this is where the violence is happening. I know you can't see the roads or the streets, but if you go down South Slocum, over in the area of Harris, Olivia Lane area, that's a hot spot. If you continue down Slocum Street south to the area around Day Point, Seymour Homes, that's a hot spot. And then if you go back up over to the left, upper left, that's going to be over around 70 West Ash Street, 117 area, around West Haven, in that general area. And then you've got some right in the middle, which is more of a residential area, just south of Royal, north of Ash, and east of Jefferson, kind of in that general area. And that's where we're seeing most of our violent crime, and this is in 2023 is what you're looking at right now. If I go in the right direction, cannot get it to go. 2024, year to date, we're having the same issue. Where the violent crime is popping up, it's popping up generally in the same area, South Slocum, Harris, Olivia Lane, around there, up over around West Haven area. The reason why you see the hospital plotting hot is because a lot of your victims of these violent crimes end up at the hospital, and that's where we respond to take the report. So that's why that area is, hotter than some of the surrounding areas up there. But that's what we're doing so far in 2024. Another thing we look at is our shot spotter. I think everybody's familiar with shot spotter. Briefly, acoustical sensors in the community. They'll hear gunshot. Takes a minimum of 3 sensors. If 3 sensors pick up the gunshot, it triangulates it and it plots it on a map. Once it receives that information, it goes to a call center. They analyze the sound, the acoustics. If they determine that it was a shot fired from a gun, then that information comes back to us. That information reaches the officers in the field in about a minute, minute and a half. What we see is 80% of our shots fired in the community are never called in, because unfortunately the residents in the city have become accustomed to hearing shots fired. So we mainly have to respond in these areas off a shot spotter. And it does very well for us. It lets the officer know in his car, it plots it, it maps it, they can see it, and then they respond. We've had this system in place since 2016. It's been very beneficial to us, but you can't gauge the success on ShotSpotter just off of the arrest and the number of firearms you take off the street. I gauge the success, and I think you look at it better if it allows us to respond quickly. We've located victims of gunshots, not because witnesses saw or witnesses told us. It's because we plotted where the shot spotter alert is, and then we were able to find a victim. We have saved a life off a shot spotter. We've passed people that have committed the crime on our way to the shot spotter alert responding. We've passed the shooters, and we're able to turn around and arrest them. So it's a very good program that I hope that we continue with. Just in 2023 alone, there was 963 alerts throughout the year in that area. And that's 5,318 rounds were fired. That's averaging 5 rounds per incident. And again, that's 2023. And if you'll look at that, I don't know if you kind of squint and look, you can see heavily populated or heavily numbered areas in probably 4 locations. And that mimics where our violent crime map is mapping. It's basically the same area. This is 2024, year to date. So far, we've had 299 alerts, 1,498 rounds fired. That's still roughly about 5 rounds per incident. Fortunately, year to date, we're trending down in alerts and in incidents. We're down 22% is how we're trending now with ShotSpotter and what it's telling us. So we're fortunate there, but that's not enough. We've got to do more. The last slide, it'll go black. There's nothing else up there to see or to refer to. Tell the council what have we experienced in the last 7 days, or kind of what we've done in the last 7, what's happened in the 7. I went back 14 days. On May 25th, Saturday, 300 block of East Elm Street at a residence. Approximately 6 p.m., one individual was shot during an argument or a confrontation and died of his injuries. On Wednesday, June 5th, 1600 block of South John Street at a residence, 2 individuals known to each other engaged in what we believe to be an assault. Both subjects were armed. They shot each other. One victim was then taken by a private vehicle over to the 300 block of Hollowell Street, where he died of his injuries. The other victim survived. Friday, June 7th, 1800 block of Ash Street, at the Food Line. Approximately 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon, individuals, again, known to each other, confront each other inside the business. And as they both begin to exit the business, one turns, shoots the other one, almost killing him instantly. Saturday, June 8th, 1800 block of Wayne Moore Drive, the Burger King. Approximately 9:49 a.m., one individual was injured when he accidentally discharged his firearm and shot himself. An employee of a business that felt the need to carry a firearm to work. Again, this is unacceptable. It's no secret, Goldsboro Police Department has been short-staffed. It's no secret. We've had to minimize some of our units, whether it's the gang unit, the housing unit, vice. They're still operational, but only with maybe 1 officer, maybe 2, and that's not sufficient to work the streets as often as we need to. The only way we're going to get out of this mess, one of the ways, we've got to police our way out of it. And by that I mean we need officers on the ground more frequently in these communities, one-on-one with these individuals. If you go back to look at that 7-year time span that I showed you, crime was coming down because we did what we do best. We were in the community. We had community police officers. We were in the schools, SROs. We were engaged in the community, and that's what we do best, and that's what I'm very proud of with Goldsboro Police Department. But we're not able to do that now. COVID came, community separated from the police department pulled back. There was a lot of anti-police rhetoric around the nation. So we had losses. Officers got out of the profession. They didn't want to do this anymore. And I don't blame them. And we haven't quite recovered. Now, council has helped us. We've got the salaries competitive, and we're going to come back just as strong as we were before. I can promise you that. So I needed some help. So what I did, we did this several years ago. This is nothing new. Sheriff, I do appreciate you being here tonight. We have had a mutual aid with Wayne County Sheriff's Office for 32 years that I know of, and even longer. This isn't new. We just didn't do this recently. We've always had a mutual aid with them. Several years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, former Mayor Allen, we talked about doing what we called a REACT team, where Goldsboro Police Department would determine the hot spots, is what we call them. We would look at the maps and we would determine where we've got our problems and where we need to be. So we teamed up with the Sheriff's Office because we needed the manpower. Again, it goes back to I've got to have officers on the street to solve this problem. So we did the REACT team several years ago. Well, now we've got to come back to it. Don't know that we're going to go with the REACT team name, or it may not work exactly like we had, but that's the reason why I reached out to the sheriff and the Wayne County Sheriff's Office to assist us inside the city, because we have got to get out of these cars. We've got to walk through these communities at 1 o'clock in the morning. We've got to. And we've got to find these guns. And we've got to find these individuals that are responsible for this. You know, and I know you've all seen it, you can go on YouTube and pull up these videos. They stand and they make these videos with these guns. They don't care. We can take that video. If we can identify the perpetrator in the video, we can get warrants on that individual and we can later arrest them. That's how we got to work, but I've got to have people on the street. So that's why I reached out to the sheriff's office, and the sheriff graciously allowed us to move forward with this. And I do appreciate that, I really do. But we've also got other resources. The U.S. Attorney's Office, in contact with them, they're ready to assist. They'll take some of these gun cases federally and fast track them and put some heavy time with the offenders. This isn't nothing new. We've always had that relationship. Other relationships, SBI, ALE. ALE is willing to bring their officers into the city and work these areas. ALE also helps us with abatement. Abatement on problem areas, businesses. And there are businesses in the area that are a problem. And we will abate them. Either they can change the way they're doing business, or they can shut down and leave. Don't think that's a good idea, because the South Side doesn't have a lot of resources now as it is, so that's not the goal here. The goal is to make the businesses better, operate like they should, and help bring the community up. That's what I'm in the business for. I'm not in the business for shutting down businesses. ATF, I've got an ATF task force officer. I've had an ATF task force officer for a few years. That's nothing new. He's reached out, ATF's ready to come into town, and let's do our job. Again, more resources on the ground. But they're using our data. We tell them what we need, we ask them, we say this is what we're trying to do, this is where we need you, and that's what they do. It's a partnership, and it works out very well. U.S. Marshal Service, I know I've heard some people suggest that. We work with the U.S. Marshal. U.S. Marshal currently has one of our arrest warrants for one of the offenders or one of the suspects in one of these homicides. They're actively looking them. So we've always had that relationship. They've helped us there. SBI is helping us. We've got an arrest warrant, so to speak. It's a juvenile petition on a juvenile that committed one of these crimes. And they're actively looking for that individual. So I don't want you to think that it's just the Wayne County Sheriff's Office that's helping GPD. We've had relationships with all these other law enforcement agencies, and we continue to build on these relationships, and I have those resources available to us. That's kind of the short-term plan of what's going to get us through the summer. And it's going to be different. You're going to see more officers in these neighborhoods out. You're going to see deputies with us out. And then some people are going to think we're over-policing the community. That's not our intent. We're going where the data tells us to go. When the data tells us we've got a problem over here, that's where we're going to go. That's the only way we're going to be able to do it short-term. Long-term, what do we need to do? We've tried this before. I've been doing this for 32 years. I've been chief for 8 years. Some people say that's too long. Sometimes I agree. But I've been the member, and I've participated in a lot of groups that want to do good. I saw Pastor A come in. I remember several years ago, engaged with him about reentry. Great program. It was hard for us to sustain it, to keep doing it. Mark Colbrook, roundtable, every quarter, go out there and talk good ideas. Brought in a lot of people, brought in churches, other organizations. It's great. The problem we have is everybody recognizes a problem, and we have to do something about it when it happens. But we've got short memories. If you go 2 or 3 weeks out, the for the police department, we've got to change our focus because there's something else we've got to work on. But the community, I don't want to say loses interest, but I guess they lose their way is what they do. And I know, Mayor, you've talked about doing some sort of council. My recommendation, if I do have a word in this, would be, I don't want the council to fall under the responsibility of the police department. Not because I don't think we can do a good job, but I think when you want the community to participate and be part of these councils to help us steer this ship, sometimes when you put the police department or put a police officer on it, that prevents some wanting to sit on the council. And I understand that. Not everybody wants to be around the police. I get it. But we have got to do something to get this under control. This community's got a lot of resources that we need to utilize. We can't arrest our way out of this. I know we say we've got to police our way. We've got to currently, but the ultimate goal isn't to arrest our way out of it. We've got to have programs in place. We've got to go after and help the young people. Again, back when we dropped the crime for 7 years, we had SROs in the schools. I don't have SROs in the school. The sheriff's office has to pick up the SRO slack. Sometimes they struggle with SROs in the school. I want my officers back in the schools. It's not because we do a better job than the sheriff's office does SROing, but my SROs in the school will be engaged with these young people during the week, and we'll also be engaging them on the weekends and during the summer. And I've had SROs, Willie Thomas, Officer Thomas, Riley Jones, they did a very good job, and they followed some of these young people all the way through to graduation. Knew their family, knew who they were. That's where we need to be. And I know I sound frustrated because I am. But I take this personally. This is personally bothering. And that's just, I apologize if that's the way I'm coming across, but we have got to do something. But it's not just the police department that's going to be. It's not law enforcement that's going to fix it. We can manage it and we can work through it, but we've got to have the community step up. City leaders have got to step up. Community leaders have got to step up. And we've got to get organized on what we're going to do to combat this. This is a long-term run. We've got to get into the schools now, get these young people, and mentor them, and get them through park and recs during the summer. I always hear people say, there's nothing to do in Goldsboro. Well, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But there's a lot of people that can't get to where they need to go to be participating in things. So there's a transportation issue. But I know we're smart enough to figure it out. And all I'm asking for from council and also from the community, help us get to where I think we need to be, and I know where you think you need to be. Mayor, I don't know what else to say.
Chief West,
I apologize.
You don't need to apologize for anything. I appreciate you speaking honestly. I appreciate you speaking passionately. I appreciate you showing the public the Chief West that you show me in my office. Because often, this is not me being critical, please understand. Often, when you come to this podium, you're very stoic. You say what you need to say. You don't let your emotions come through. You save that for the men and women in your department, and you save that for when you're with me or with the city manager. And the people need to see this. The people need to see that the chief of police for this city genuinely cares, wants this to be better, and is committed to it being better. You have nothing to apologize for. I appreciate you speaking with honesty and integrity tonight.
Thank you. Do you prefer me to go sit down, or you want me to loiter? Or?
Well, hang out just for a second. So, council, we have the opportunity, if you have questions for Sheriff Pierce, you have questions for Chief West, and then after these questions from us, at that point, as I said earlier, we're going to adjourn. After council questions, council comments, we're going to adjourn, and we're going to go back to our communities and engage in our own way. Chief West, Sheriff Pierce, if you feel so inclined to opine as well. I have a voice. It's kind of odd to say that because I don't always like to be a self-promoting individual, which is difficult given that I'm a politician now, which is also difficult to admit publicly. From my chair, I know that there are going to be times where we're going into communities that have traditionally not really trusted. What can I do? What can I say? How can I help to bridge a gap to where that you can start getting the information that you need in order to be able to help solve some of these crimes? What, if anything, would you or the sheriff advise that from my chair that I do to help build a little bit of trust?
Transparency. And I think that's where we've done well. I don't think we fully lost the trust of the community. I think the profession lost the trust of all communities. And we've had to overcome what other agencies have done to the profession, and it's kind of hindered us. So I've always thought we've had a very good community. I thought we've always had a community that supports their law enforcement. But what they appreciate the most is transparency. That's why I don't have a problem with putting out my crime numbers, letting people know what's going on in their neighborhoods, what's going on. That everybody needs to know. So I think, Mayor, I think transparency is what's going to help us and others get over that trust issue.
Well, what I will say is I'm going, from my chair in my office, I'm going to have your back. I'm going to have your officers' back. If we make a mistake, we're going to own it. We're going to make it right, and we're going to move forward. But I'm publicly stating I'm going to have your back. And community, then I'm going to stop talking because I want to allow council their opportunity to ask questions, but I'm trying to give them an opportunity to kind of finish their notes as well. I get so many emails and phone calls from folks that live in some of these red dots, who are tired of feeling like they are prisoners in their own home. And I know that this is going to be a relief to those who have been crying out and begging for help for a long time. I can only speak to the last several months that I've been getting them in my inbox, but I know other council members have to be getting it as well. And so I just wanted to, again, go publicly on the record. I realize it's not a question, it's more of a comment, but when we make a mistake, we're going to own up to it, we're going to make it right, we're going to move forward. But I know that there are folks that are begging for some relief and some support. So with that, council, I will yield to council questions. Please wait to be recognized so we can kind of keep this thing on the rails. Councilman Taylor, and then who did I?
If I may.
Yes.
We're at capacity. We created additional space in the large conference room.
Okay.
To use, so if you don't mind.
Please, go right ahead.
If you follow me, if you'd like to sit down and talk to me.
I was oddly expecting more. That was a lot of. We can all agree that was a lot of buildup, right? Maybe I misinterpreted the situation, but I appreciate. And if anyone does want to hop across and hop over there, please feel free to do so. So, Councilwoman Taylor, I saw your hand up. Would anyone like to queue up behind? And then Councilmember White. Councilmember Taylor, the floor is yours. Councilmember White, the floor will be yours after Councilwoman Taylor's comments and questions.
Hey, Chief. Just for clarification for the people here today and the people watching at home, can you please explain what a REACT team is? The REACT team.
Yeah, the REACT team. We talked about it this morning. I don't remember what REACT, the letters actually stand for. But basically, again, what it is we'll use our data, Goldsboro Police Department's data, and we'll look and we'll identify areas that we're having a problem. We call them hot spots. And we're going to lower our focus to where we're not looking worth a month's worth of data. We're going to condense it down to weeks worth. And then if we start seeing trends, certain areas, then these officers will, whenever the crimes occur, if we're getting a trend where they're occurring more during the daytime, we'll shift the focus over to daytime. But it's to put 4 to 8 officers. We can do it. Goldsboro Police Department can do it, but I can't sustain it. We can do it maybe once a week because I have to do callback pay to bring people back into working on their days off. And if we do it, my officers are going to be working 14, 18 days. But anyway, so we can do it, but the sheriff's office is going to help us do it more frequently, and that's what it's going to take. Twice a week, maybe 3 times, we've got to do it more frequently. But basically, it's identify areas that we need to put the police in, and that's where we need to be, and we're going to be on foot. We could be doing a checkpoint. That's what we need to be, but that's the REACT team.
Is that your comments? All right. Councilmember White and then Councilmember Johnson.
Yes, I just have a question for the council, actually. You may better help me understand. The Housing Authority, what are we doing to hold the board that's on the Housing Authority and as well as the CEO accountable? Because when we look at the hot spots on the video, it's predominantly all the Housing Authority areas. So what are we doing to hold them accountable for all the crime?
I'll be at their board meeting tomorrow.
I will too.
I am not a board member, but as the mayor, one of the tools that I have is I appoint the board members. Now, once appointed, their term is fixed. I don't get to arbitrarily go in and remove. But at the expiration of their term, it is the role of the mayor to appoint to that board. And so I'll be at their board meeting tomorrow, and there's a lot of conversations underway to that point. The data is what the data is. There's no denying the data, and we've got to figure out how we are going to jointly, I want to emphasize that word, jointly, bring some pressure on those problems. Councilmember White, does that conclude your question? All right. Councilwoman Jones.
Well, this is going to piggyback on Councilman White. I wrote down that your hotspot was Slocum Street and Olivia Lane, and I didn't look at the map. So, actually, how many hotspots are there? I know that there are some in this area, but how many hotspots? How many are you said? Is it just Slocum and Olivia, or is it?
No, there's approximately 5 areas by looking at the map.
Okay, I didn't look at the map. Okay.
Yeah, there's 5 areas.
And I know that, for the people in the audience, they may not have seen it and they don't have the agenda, and I don't think they have this either.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that everybody understood how many. And then my other question was, you talked about the hot spot on South Slocum and Olivia Lane in 2023 and then in 2024, and it was the same area. And I know, because you and I talked and we've worked together very well, I know that we did not have policemen in place. But since you got the same results in 2024, was there high police presence in 2024? Did you put more policemen in that area and the crime was just still high?
I don't have more officers on the street. We're currently, and I say we're currently 31 vacancies on paper. But 6 of those are in BLET currently. So technically I'm 37 short, or we're 37 short on the street. As far as putting more officers in that area in 2024, it's doing our version of the REACT team. We could do callback pay once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, and we try to bring officers. So we're doing it on a smaller scale, but we're just not getting the results that we think we can get if we have more officers to where we can spend more time down there. So we were putting more officers in there, but we just can't sustain it, and we can't do it frequently enough. And those more officers, basically, and I said it earlier, came from my warrant division. Warrants typically has 2 officers serving warrants. I don't have a warrant division. But my officers are serving warrants, so I don't want people to think that we're not out here serving warrants, but it's not in the volume that we need to. Same thing with housing. Before I had 5 housing officers, and I could put housing officers in each one of these communities, and we could get involved with the citizens in those communities and help them. But I haven't had 5 housing officers in quite some time, so we've got 1 to sustain it. Same thing with the gang unit. Gang unit's supposed to be 2 strong. I've got 1 that's maintaining the intel and to help us with the hotspot. Same thing with the SEU unit, which is the specialized enforcement unit. Usually that's 5 deep. That's 1. Again, just to keep the unit operational, but we don't have much feet on the ground. So that's kind of how we're at.
And I have one more question.
Please, continue.
It was reported, I was in my area in District 1, and there were shots fired, and it has been reported that the mechanical factor of the shooter, spot shooter, was having some problems. So I want to make sure that we are getting everything that we're supposed to get from that device and that it is accurate. So could you clear up that rumor?
Yeah, I mean, these sensors, they're mechanical, like you said, and they fail occasionally, but ShotSpotter does a very good job of constantly looking at the system. They were in here recently, maybe as recent as a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago, to update the sensors.
Okay.
But when you get a missed fire, I hate to go into a lot of details. If it's a close range shot, chances are it's not going to the sensors aren't going to pick it up. If it's a shot inside of a vehicle or inside of a residence, it's not going to pick it up. So you will have cases of shots being fired that those sensors will not pick it up. So it could possibly be a mechanical issue, or it could just be the type of shot, when it occurred, how it occurred. That has a factor in it as well.
Thank you.
Council, Ms. Weeks, Councilwoman Weeks.
So I have a question for you. So I'm looking at the data, and it clearly states or clearly shows that there is an uptick in the area specifically with the Goldsboro Housing Authority. So my question to you is, I know that years ago they had to pay for police officers or officers in that area. Have we had any conversations with them about going back to that program? And I want to talk about, what does abatement look like? Because this specific business is contributing to the nuisance.
Okay.
Their numbers clearly state that there is an increase in crime in that area.
Weeks, pause just for a second. I want everyone to be able to hear your question. And let's see, you're able to get that one there. Perfect. And anyone else, I've made the same exact mistake. Certainly don't want to embarrass anyone, but please do make sure that your phones are silenced. Right. Councilman Weeks, if you'd like to continue, if you feel a need to restate anything, please feel free.
I was just saying, it's clearly, the data shows that it's an uptick in that specific area. I know that they used to have to pay for police presence in that area. Because we talked about abatement, we talked about businesses that are causing a nuisance. So have any conversations been had with them specifically as far as increasing police presence and also holding them accountable and responsible to actually contribute to that?
Several years ago, the Goldsboro Police Department applied for a COPS grant. And this is late 90s, maybe early 2000, and that allowed us to increase the number of officers we had and assign them specifically to the housing community. And it was community policing grant is basically what it was. And it was a 3-year grant. Each year, the grant would pick up, I think, 75% of the cost of the salary, and the city would pick up the rest of the cost, the 25%. And that may be where Goldsboro Housing, that was a little bit before my time in the administrative part of it, so I'm not really familiar. 25% may have been where Goldsboro Housing was pitching in there. And then the second year went to the 50%, 25%.
Chief, pause for just 1 second. Again, final warning. Again, not to embarrass anybody, but please do check your phones. If it's not silenced, please do ensure that it's silenced. Chief, if you need to restate anything, please feel free. I apologize for the interruption.
And then after the 3-year grant ran out, we still maintained the officers in the housing, and we just called it a housing unit. But for several years, probably at least 8 years that I know of, probably 10 years, we don't get compensated from Goldsboro Housing for officers to work those areas. But to be fair, with our manning, the way we're staffed, I haven't always been able to put officers in those communities on frequent basis like we should. And I expect that will improve with Goldsboro Housing Authority. As far as abatement, you can abate a business, you can abate a residence. Basically what it is if the city determines through data that a business or a residence is contributing to crime and blight in the community, then we'll do an abatement. And the way the abatement starts is the mayor's office would send it. I would provide the mayor with the data. The mayor will send a letter to the business or the resident and say that, the city of Goldsboro Police Department has determined your property or business to be a nuisance. You need to stop the nuisance, cease and desist. chief of police phone number, call the chief of police, set up a meeting, and we can talk how we're not going to do it for you, but we'll assist you to stop doing what you're doing. That's how it starts. And then if that fails, then the SBI ALE, their assistants will come in. They'll come in and help us. And then we'll start going through the court system. And then that'll end up in the court to where technically the city of Goldsboro could seize the property. And if we're familiar with the Serena Inn, that's what was done with the Serena Inn. And that's been successful, I feel like. Mm-hmm. That it changed owners and we were able to abate them, and then we worked with them and they've gone up and they've met the requirements of what the abatement called for. And I think it's made a difference over there. So that's kind of the abatement process, but it can be done on residential units and it can be done on property as far as businesses.
Councilwoman, any further questions? Councilwoman?
Hi. Okay. So if we're looking at 100% of crime in general in the city of Goldsboro, out of all those shot spotter alerts that you showed us and the crimes reported, what's the percentage of crimes coming from the Goldsboro Housing Authority?
I'm more familiar with the shot spotter data. Approximately 70% of the shot spotter data, the shots fired, is coming from those communities. I'd hate to venture a guess on the crime itself. I would say probably north of 50%.
I want to be very clear on the data. In some situations, you have, since we're discussing the housing authority property proper, and then you have other privately owned apartments and things right there around it. So, can you, with any confidence, say, is it coming from the housing authority proper, or is it the kind of neighboring areas right there around it? With what degree of specificity do you get?
With me not knowing the single family dwellings or the houses that Goldsboro Housing Property owns, I don't know. I just know the housing developments.
Okay.
But a majority of that is coming from the housing developments. But yes, there is bleed over into the surrounding residential units that could look on a heat map that it's contributing to the numbers in Goldsboro Housing. Right. I would have to dig deeper to plot physical points. Right. And we can do that. It's time consuming, but hopefully that'll be some technology that we can acquire to help us get more specific with those numbers.
And again, not to defend or overcomplicate it, I just wanted to make sure that I acknowledge that there are other private landlords as well that we absolutely will be pursuing through nuisance abatement. That's all.
Absolutely.
I apologize for interrupting. Please continue.
Okay. All right. A couple more questions and I'll be done. So as far as warrants are concerned, I know you said, your warrant squad is kind of, so while the sheriff's department is assisting us, will they also be assisting you with serving warrants inside the city limits?
There's been some talk of that. We could. That'll be kind of a logistical thing we'll have to work through. The only thing with serving warrants, when we do the REACT team, we try to do teams of 2 because I don't want any officer or any deputy out here working solo. And sometimes if you serve a warrant, then you're going to take that deputy or that officer out of the scenario, and now I could have possibly lessened the number of officers on that team and may have to shut that team down until I can bring the officer back out. So majority of the warrants we're going to serve, but there was some discussion earlier that if we do have warrants out in the field, could we contact the Wayne County Sheriff's warrant department or warrant office and have them serve it? Could we pass it off? But so we'll try to manage that as best we can, but preferably we would be the ones that would serve it.
Okay. And then the last thing, just one question about the slide, right? This particular slide. So I see that some of them are pinkish, even though the number may say 1 or 2. Can you just, for clarification, tell me what the difference is?
Yeah, I don't know how that map plot the different colors. It could be that there's previous history with that location. I can run the data sheet, not just the plots, but it'll tell me physical addresses that the shot came from. Okay. Very close proximity. And they'll break it down and they'll say that such and such an address on Slocum Street, or let's say on Berkeley Boulevard, in the last 30 days has 5 incidents of shots fired. What's that going to tell us is that I need to have investigators talk with the people that live there and find out what's going on. So some of those different colors are because there could be a history with that location, and the other colors are there's no history, it's just the first time it's been alerted.
Okay.
Council, are there any other specific questions for Chief West? Obviously, Sheriff Pierce is here as well. Not to necessarily force you up here, but certainly to give you the opportunity to be able to speak if you so choose. Council, any other questions? If not, we'll move towards closing remarks. Okay. So with that, for those watching, our custom since I've been in this chair is if we're in the top half of a month, we begin our closing remarks at District 1. If we're in the bottom half of a month, we begin our remarks at District 6. As we'll call it, we've already had our first meeting. So I'm going to allow Councilmember White to begin, and then we'll conclude our closing remarks with Councilman Jones and then my closing remarks. Councilman White.
Mayor, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out to participate and show their concern for our community. I just have a few remarks. Crime has been a problem in our city for a while now. And I think that we're failing to address the root cause of our crime problem, which is poverty and the underperforming schooling system. I think lack of economic development is also a root cause of our crime problem. And we're still moving forward without a plan to revitalize our low to moderately income neighborhoods. We must be intentional with improving the entire city. We must make a concerted effort to not continue to leave the south side of Goldsboro behind while others move forward. The plan to beef up the police department is great and it is greatly needed. I do understand that. But I do disagree with Chief just a little bit, and we can't police our way out of this. It has to be a concerted plan that everybody is involved and everybody has some type of glimmer of hope. I think that we need to hold the parents of these teenagers and juveniles accountable. I don't know what that looks like, but when I was going to school, it was called truancy. So when the kid, we couldn't get the kid, you got the parent. And the parent held the kid accountable. So we must begin to go back to things that work. And then my last thing, and I said it before, is we need to begin to hold the housing authority accountable for the actions that happen on their property. That's all I have, man.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Weeks, the floor is yours.
I echo everything that you said. It's definitely not a police issue, but this is a community issue. It's going to take all of us. It takes a village. Often I'm with the men in jail on Thursdays, and they will tell me, they say, Miss Beverly, I did not have a father figure. I did not have I don't know what it's like to have a mother figure. And so we've got to start rallying around the youth in our city as well and start mentoring them. It's going to take all of us, the churches, the businesses, everyone needs to get involved. 100%, I believe we need to hold the Goldsboro Housing Authority accountable. They need to step up and be a part of the solution. And then the last thing I'm going to say is prayer changes things. And if you believe in prayer, I'm here to tell you that it works. I don't have all the solutions. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting up here and I'm looking at so many wise people in this audience, and I think, wow, I would really love to hear what you have to say, or what you have to say, or you have to say. I don't have all the solutions, but I want to tell you, I serve a God who has the solutions, and I say it is time for our people, the people of this city, to cry out, because he says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, I will heal from them and I will hear their land. And so I'm asking our city to join together in prayer. I know it's going to take solutions. It's going to take coming together with the police department and the sheriff department. But I'm telling you, one thing that's wrong with this city is we have turned from God, and until we turn back towards God, we're going to have an even worse situation.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Pro Tem, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilman Roderick White and Councilwoman Beverly Weeks, for your comments. Bear with me while I try to navigate this in the best way possible. First thing that I want to say is I represent the south end of Goldsboro. I grew up in the south end of Goldsboro. My heart is and forever will be with those people on the south end of Goldsboro. So when I speak, my words will be primarily focused towards them and what we can do to better serve them. As I look out in this audience, I see a little bit of everybody from a little bit of everywhere. And I want to be surprised, but crime shouldn't have to creep across streets and districts for everybody to care. I need you to care all the time. And I need you to invest all the time, because that's what's going to change things. I attended a rally last year, and so many people were outraged, and they showed up. And some people came and stood before this council and said, I'm going to come every meeting until you do something. That's the accountability that we need as leaders. That's the accountability that you need as residents and community leaders in your respective organizations. I see a little bit of every organization in here. I need you to show up all the time. All the time. I want to specifically speak to this board like I have done for every year that I've sat here. What are we going to do? See, because there has been initiatives that have come before this board. There has been ideas and solutions, but because of the messenger, the message was missed. And here we are again. There are mothers. I talked to a couple today. I talked to a father today. I've talked to nieces and brothers and family and friends of these victims. How do we plan to support them? See, I'm all for stopping the violence, but there's some people that are hurting. And how do we support them? How do we offer support? How do we show up for them? I'm not expecting Chief West and Sheriff Pierce to dispatch their troops out into these streets. I'm expecting to dispatch all of us into the streets.
Amen.
Because some of us go, but it's not enough. It's not enough to see Richard Taylor show up on Mondays for an after-school program in the Grands, because let's call it the Grands, because that's what it is. I don't want us to keep talking about this neighborhood on the south end and that. Let's give it names. It's called the Grand at Day Point. That's what it is. And those people in there are somebody. They're special. We want to talk about God. They're all God's children. He loves us all. But they need opportunities. They need access to quality stores, grocery, gas, all the things. So while we're welcome economic development into our community, we ought to hold our developers to a certain standard that says no more on the other end. Let's go down here on the south end, because those people need that. I will stand in front of anybody and say we will not abate that store down there on the south end. Not yet. Why? Because then they'll have nothing. Nothing. So why don't we pull our resources together? And Chief is working on this, and thank you, Chief, for working on setting up a meeting with that store owner to say, how can we support you? How can we upfit this store? How can we get these dusty Laffy Taffies and old expired sodas off your shelves so our people got something? Because you know what? After 6 o'clock, the buses don't run. Some of our people, that's all they got. That's all they got. So we got to figure out what that looks like. And I'm calling on all y'all to make it happen. See, I'm just one voice and one vote. And oftentimes I'm outheard and I'm outnumbered in the votes. And I can't get much done. But with you, I can. I can. So I'm asking this board, what are we going to do to support these families? I heard one father say today, sometimes all it takes is just a phone call to say, I was thinking about you. Wow. You lost your son, and the one thing that you want is for somebody to call and say, I was thinking about you. We can make all these grandiose statements and posts, and it can be shared far, far and wide. But until we get into the weeds of it and take some action, ain't much gonna change. And I also want to put some pressure on these organizations that are sent to help. Now is the time. Now has been the time. I don't want to see any more bodies hitting the ground in any area of this city. But I know it's going to take more than these folks right here to make it happen. Because we got ideas, but I want to hear from you. So I want to invite all of you to hang around a little while, because I want to hear from you on them steps after we get done here, because you can't say anything right here in this setting. But you got a voice and I want to hear it. So I want you to meet me on the steps and let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. I'll stay here as long as you want to stay here. But from that meeting, there's going to come something has to come out of it. Something. And I want you guys to hold us accountable. Keep showing up. Keep applying pressure. Keep inviting us to your events. People say, prayer vigils don't work, marches don't work. I'm willing to do anything at this point. Any and everything. I talked about a curfew. Some people say, what would a curfew help? It'll send a clear message that we're sick and tired of it. That's what it'll do. And that's the one thing that we can do immediately. See, policing is going to take some time. That's not an easy button. But I can implement a curfew that tells you I'm sick and tired of it, and I'm going to take whatever extreme measure it takes to clean up some of these streets. And if I had my way, I'd get this gun show out of our city that's coming up this weekend. Come on now. District 4, I love you. There is a survey that has been circling around for the past maybe 6 to 9 months now. There's been very few responses. I've shared it on my councilwoman page, and for those of you who are not following it, please follow that, because I'm always sharing what we're doing, and I'm sharing some things that I'm doing in the district, and you're always welcome to come and be a part of those events. But a lot of that survey said people were scared, and we kind of heard that tonight, right? Some of you may be scared. I don't even know how I feel, honestly. But I want you to take that survey, because what it does is it helps us address the root cause, like Councilman White talked about, because it's not just about the guns. We got some mental health. We got some education. But I know my folks on the South End, who I love dearly, they don't have access. And I appreciate those of you who have brought sand to the beach. Thank you. Thank you. So there's some other questions that I will pose at a later date. But I do want to encourage you again to stay behind. I've let the council know that some organizations have planned to stay behind. So some of us will be there to hear you. Also, to the individuals that have been affected by this in any regard, please don't hesitate to let us know what you need. And by God, if I can't do nothing else, I can call and check on you. So if you know those family members, let us know how we can help them and how we can serve them while they transition through this difficult time. So thank you for being here, and I love you, and I'm still going to stand strong on there is gold in Goldsboro.
Thank you, President. Councilwoman Taylor.
Okay. That's a lot to go behind. Thank you, all three of you guys so far. So that's the same thing I wanted to talk to you guys tonight, was about accountability. So when I decided to run for this seat for District 3, I knew we faced long-standing issues. A lot of times I think of my part of District 3 as the forgotten areas. These problems we have, they didn't just start yesterday. They've been building up for years due to our acceptance of less than what we deserve. We must adopt a proactive mindset, recognizing that change is both needed and warranted. Just because a neighborhood has always been a certain way for years doesn't mean it has to stay that way. By looking at the bigger picture, you'll see a path forward, even if it's not always clear. This evening, I want to talk about accountability, not just for myself, but for our city and for our citizens. Accountability to me means taking responsibility for our actions, recognizing that while we have the power to cause problems, we also have the power to fix them. If we want change, we must hold ourselves accountable and ensure others are held accountable too. If you contact me as your District 3 rep and I drop the ball, let me know. If your family, your neighbor, or your local store is contributing to crime or dangerous conditions, speak up and let them know. If you see something in this city that needs to be addressed by Chief West, the mayor, the city manager, or any department head, speak up and let them know, hold them accountable. It's a problem when crime becomes normalized in certain areas and we feel powerless to change it. No part of this city is better than another, and no person is more valuable than anyone else. All of our lives matter, whether we live in the south side of Goldsboro, Peel Hill, or on Berkeley Boulevard. Crime is crime, and the only way to reduce it is by being accountable and holding others accountable until we see change. Even then, we cannot afford to become complacent. Get out of the mindset that reporting wrongdoing is snitching. Too many lives have been lost, and too many murder cases remain unsolved. This is not okay. Let's commit to accountability to each other and to our community. That's it.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Boyette?
I'll keep my comments brief. I'd echo everything that I've heard. I completely agree and support every council member and their comments thus far completely. As I've said many times, this community deserves to feel safe in their home and on their streets, no matter what, and not one particular side of town. Every corner of this city, the citizens deserve to be safe and feel safe and be safe in their community, whatever it takes. And one of the things it's going to take, as you've heard this evening, proactive law enforcement. Proactive law enforcement is necessary to start moving the needle. And in order for proactive law enforcement to be successful, we have to have the support of the community. The community has to support the efforts of law enforcement. And I'd echo further the comments that were made in support of our police chief. You have my support, your officers have my support, and any resources that you need, that you feel that you need to help move this needle, I'm in support of. And again, I agree with everything I've heard from each of my fellow council mates, and I appreciate everyone's comments.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman, the floor is yours.
First of all, I want to thank you, everyone, for being here, and I'm really glad to see you all here. And I may be a little redundant, but I'm going to say how I feel. I'm in District 1, and no, we have not had a lot of incidents like that, but it filtrates into my district. We cannot turn a blind eye to the fact that crime perpetuates a vicious cycle of leading and making broken families and shattered dreams and loss of opportunities. The effects of crime reverberates through generations, leaving scars for many decades on children. Every time someone dies, every time someone in that family dies, a child hurts. That family hurts. Friend hurts. I have had a friend to open a door and be shot so many times until they could not even transfer a body to the cart. That's devastating. And so are the lives of all these individuals that have passed. Children growing up in an environment that is plagued by violence and crime are most likely to repeat those patterns. They are. It's true. That's history. We have the power right in here, all of us in here, and everybody that's listening. We have the power to change that. And we have to make a positive change for more prosperous communities. We must come together as a society, as neighbors, as a fellow human being to tackle the root and cause of crime addressed by systemic inequalities. Education, economic empowerment, access to quality health care, and a strong sense of community, that is the pillar. That is the pillar. And I echo what my council people have said. By investing in our youth, having mentorship and supporting them, if you see a child, just speak to them. Just say hello. Tell them that they're beautiful. Sometimes that is the only time that child will ever hear that they're beautiful. We have to invest in our community. We have to invest in our children. Our adults must be adults. I'm telling you, parents, you can't be sister friends. You got to be a parent. You got to be a parent first. And you got to teach them and lead them and be a role model for them. And be someone that they will be able to look up to. I am challenging all the churches, and I've done it on my Facebook page. I'm challenging all the churches to come together and pray. Now, I'm going to tell you, last summer, we had deaths. We walked, we sang, we prayed, we had a hearse, a hearse to shock everyone. But 2 weeks later, where were we? Where were we? We were back in our homes, some of us doing nothing. How many people have called the lady whose young daughter was killed at the pool? How many of you, after you did that walk, after you did your TV shot, where were you after then? Did you call her? Did you go by? Did you check on her? We need your help. We need the community. I created a crime watch in my district. And I have about 15 or 25 people come. But you know what the other ones say? They say, Miss Hiawatha, I will tell you, I will call you, but I will not go to your meetings because I don't want anyone seeing me go in that meeting for that crime watch. We got to do better. We have got to do better. It is time for us to stand together. We must work together hand in hand to build a future where every child has an opportunity to learn, where every child feels safe, where every adult feels safe. And we've got to do it, and we've got to do it now. And I thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. It warms my heart to see you here. And thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Council, thank you for your time this evening. Thank you for changing your plans and being here this evening. I realize that this was organized very quickly, certainly with consultation, certainly with discussion, but nonetheless very quickly. And I realize that many of us had other commitments to other nonprofits that had other events going on this evening. And I appreciate everyone being able to make time. To our other representatives, other elected officials from other communities, Mayor, thank you so much for being here, showing your support, Commissioner, Sheriff, other council members from other communities. I know I saw a Register of Deeds. I believe I saw our clerk. I know I saw a clerk of court. I believe I saw a Register of Deeds. There's true support for wanting to see change in Goldsboro, for wanting to see Goldsboro be what it is built and what it should be. I'm going to echo something that I said last year about this time. Violence begets violence, and violence generates retaliation. I'm begging you, find a way. If you know something, get that information anonymously. I don't care if you put it on a paper airplane and drop it through a window, but get the information to the police, to the sheriffs, so they can handle this the right way. I do not want to see retaliation and street justice where we have another body laying somewhere. We can do this the right way. We can honor these families by giving them true closure, which is justice through the criminal justice system. We can do this the right way. If you know something, I'm begging you, please step up. We've already discussed this evening what we're going to be doing on the policing side of things. That's important. But as has been discussed eloquently, we have to look at the root causes. We have to look at economic development. We have to look at industry recruitment. We have to look at the work that our Chamber of Commerce does in being able to support and grow small businesses in and around our community. We have to look at the work that the Development Alliance does trying to recruit commercial and industrial enterprises right here to be able to provide not just jobs but careers right here in Goldsboro. We have to look at what we're doing to support our schools. We have to look at what our nonprofits are doing to support our families. There's a tremendous amount of work that is going. I believe that it is good work, but as everyone has seen, there's room for more, and we have to do more. Because otherwise, we'll see everyone next year just like this, and we can't do that again. To everyone who has been sending emails and phone calls, I know my inbox is flooded. You will all get a response. It's not going to be tonight. You're all going to get a response. I so appreciate the energy, the commitment. You're going to get a response. It's going to take a few days. Lastly, my commitment, my vision, something that was stated time after time after time. This council myself included, has a commitment to public safety. That, of course, involves the policing angle. It also involves the economic development angle. And here's why. Because I believe that every single family member, every single child deserves to be able to be safe in their bed. It does not matter to me the color of your skin. It does not matter to me if you rent. It does not matter to me if you own. It does not matter to me if you are in a hotel. It does not. What matters to me is that you can sleep safely and be prepared to go to school the next day, go to work the next day, whatever it is, that you can be prepared to do it. So, council, community, thank you so much for being here tonight. Those that would like to gather, of course, it's the steps to City Hall, of course, are open. Please do converse, talk through options. Members of our Community Relations and Development Committee, stick around if you're able to. Obviously, we all have schedules. Get some input. Find out folks that want to get involved, and then help me get them involved. With that, everyone, thank you for your time. We stand adjourned.